there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. Today I'm going to share with you very quickly how to make the one sheet wonder sheets that I made for these particular cards. I shared them on my blog and on various places a few weeks ago now, or a couple of weeks ago I think it was. And I just wanted to sort of show you just how it was made, because I've had lots of questions about it. So I thought it'd be quite nice just to hop on and show you quickly how I did it. This is the one sheet wonder when it's finished. Now there's various styles of one sheet wonders, so you can do them as heavy or as light as you want to really. So you might want to create one with a lot more white space. I wanted to create one which was an all over sort of effect. So I'm showing that to you today just so you can get an idea of how it was made. But there are no rules. That's what you've got to remember. It is a case of just going with the flow, so to speak. So I'm going to pop that to one side. I will just run through how I made these quickly later. So the first thing we're going to need is a piece of Whisper White cardstock. So I'm using A4. I'm based in the UK and that's our standard size. But you could use any shape or size if you just wanted to make one card in particular. You could just do a small piece. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to be doing the full sheet because then we can obviously cut that up. I have used 3 stamp sets to make my design. Predominantly it is Pretty Perennials. So this is new in the mini catalogue. And I have used an awful lot of elements from here. There's 2 or 3 that I haven't, but there's quite a lot you'll see that I have used from there. Also pick up any kind of background stamps you have. So from Tasteful Touches, I've used just this little one here, but something that's got a bit of background, got a bit of interest to it, works really well, and textures is what we're kind of looking for. And then also in my one, I don't know if you've spotted it, but I also used All Wired Up. Now, it's only very briefly in my design, but actually you can really spot it when you look. So it's, you know, anything that adds that kind of texture and layers, which is what we're trying to achieve. Okay. I've also used one of our masks. These are great for adding even further texture. So if I bring in my piece here, you can see these are made using the masks, and they're great for what I call gap filling. So you can, if you get little white gaps afterwards, you can just sort of fill them out as you like, really. So there we go. So that's what we're going to be doing. So as I say, just plain white card. I do tend to keep a piece of scrap next to me because we do quite a lot of first and second generation stamping. So we want just a piece just to take off anything excess. I tend to stamp straight onto my board here because I can just wipe it clean afterwards. And we're not too particular about sort of where that ink's going to end up anyway. The next thing you need to decide is colour schemes. Now, traditionally, if I'm doing a one sheet wonder, I usually start with a minimum of 3, maybe 4 colours, and then gradually as I build it up, sometimes I start adding in extra colours. So I ended up with 6 colours in this one. So we've got Rococo Rose and Blackberry Bliss are our sort of predominant colours, and then we've got So Saffron, Granny Apple Green, Pumpkin Pie and Grey Granite, and I kept purely to that colour palette just because it just worked really well together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Rococo Rose. So Rococo Rose is features quite predominantly, as you can see. So that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to take the largest flower from the Pretty Perennials, which is this one here, and I'm going to be using first and second generation stamping for this. So just if you're not familiar with those terms, first generation is when we take a stamp and we stamp it direct onto our sheet. We then don't re-ink it, and I'm going to offset another one of those flowers. So it just gives that lighter effect, but it's also adding more texture and more depth to our piece. Now, I'm going to do this all over, and this is just quite random. Go off the edges of your paper and card as well, because you find if you look at any image on wrapping paper or wallpaper, images always go off the edge, so you don't want to be leaving a border around the edge. You want to be able to have it on the edge, but just be warned that when you actually stamp off the edge, you then get a line on this stamp, so you wouldn't want to use this for a second generation again. So I'm going straight back in with the ink, and I'm going to ink it onto my scrap before I then go in and add my second generation one. So it's just remembering, if you're going off the edge, that will leave a line, because obviously you're taking the ink off only half really, because you can see this part would have remained inked. So that's just a quick tip. And again, I'm just doing first and second generation. I'm not too bothered about where they're appearing. I'm quite happy just to go with the flow and just see where they end up really. And you'll find also different pressures, different inkings will also give you sort of different shades of the same colour, which is fine. That's what we're trying to get, is that depth into our piece. So can you see that one hasn't come out too well there? That's my fault, because I was not inking it well enough. I'm not too worried about that. I've got a little mark on here. That's fine. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. We're going to build this up and you'll see that all these will disappear. Now, can you see what I've done there? What I just told you not to do. So that's what will happen. You'll get this line appear. It's not the end of the world in the sense that I can cover it up with something else, but that's exactly what will happen if you don't actually re-ink it. So I've just gone in, just filled in a couple of little gaps. I might just fill in a little one over here as well. So it's only a little tiny piece of my stamped image, but it's actually sufficient to just sort of fill those holes. Okay, so that one I've kind of finished with really. I'm not going to be using that again. But in the centres of these flowers, I have used this little wispy one here. So this is Blackberry Bliss, and even on the ones that are on the edge, I tend to try and add a little bit of the colour if I can. Now, can you see that's virtually disappeared? When we add more detail, it's going to disappear even more. This one I won't worry with because it's too far over. Yeah, it is too far over. But these ones, I'm just going to ink into the centres. What's nice about doing this technique is that you can be quite free with it, so you don't need to, you know, worry too much if everything's completely lined up and like you would if you were doing it for a card or something. So you just need to be quite free about it and you know, try and sort of just develop it really. We will be using that again a little bit later. I'm just going to wipe these smaller ones as I go, because I tend to use them for different colours as I go. So chances are you might end up with something quite nasty. So I'm going to stick with Blackberry Bliss, and this time I'm going for this 4-petal flower. And again, I'm just going to put these quite close to my pink flowers, but again, I want them quite random. I'm overlapping, so don't worry about that. You want to overlap all your images, and again, that will create the depth and it will start creating the whole thing coming together really. And again, I want to go off the edges here. Now notice these are all first generation, they're not second generation stamping. If you don't get it quite right, you can go back over. So I'm going to pop a little one on the edge there, and maybe just a little one on the edge here. So it's just filling up, starting to fill up those gaps. So I'm going to pop that to one side for a moment. Again, I've finished with that one now, but I am quickly going to wipe it so that it's all clean and out of the way. So the next thing we want to do is we want to build in some of the smaller flowers. So I'm just taking So Saffron and Pumpkin Pie. So I'm going to work with So Saffron first, and I'm using this little 5-petal. And again, I'm just sort of building up this design here. So I might do 2 or 3 in an area. I might do them individually. It's entirely up to you. You know, just build up and just fill in any little gaps, and again you're over stamping, so everything's going on top of each other, not completely, but it's just sort of off to the side to create this sort of arrangement really. And the trick is not to think about it too much, because if we think about it, then we start, without realising, forming a bit of a pattern, and we don't want a pattern to appear, we want it to remain quite free. So just sort of bear that in mind, because we are guilty, I think, of kind of just trying to be too particular of where things go. So I'm going straight into the pumpkin pie, and I'm going to stamp that pumpkin pie right over where that line was, try and get rid of it a little bit, and I'm going to do 2 of those there. And do a little individual one there. And again, you're just bringing in colour, so you want it to be quite random, but you want there to be a little bit of orange sort of here and a little bit of yellow there, and you just want to build it up. This is great. You don't have to worry about being perfect stamping, which is so nice sometimes. You can just be a little bit freer with your designs, which is lovely. Okay, I might just add a little orange one down there. So again, I'm quite happy with that. Sometimes I have to come back in and add a few more of these elements if I feel, you know, sometimes as you go on, you'll find that little gaps don't feel quite right, and you just want to add some little more little ones in, and that's absolutely fine. Now I've gone back to Blackberry Bliss, and I've got this little 5 dot stamp here, and these are going to be the centers of my yellow and orange flowers. And I do use this little stamp a bit later on for filling in some little gaps as well. So it is quite nice to be free, and they're quite sort of abstracty almost, so you know, there's no rhythm to it, you just kind of just go with it really. The light's not very good for me over that direction, so just as well. This is where you usually find that you've just missed one just after you've cleaned your stamp. Okay, so that's added those flowers. Now what I want to do is to add some greenery, and I'm using Granny Apple Green because it went really nice with these particular flowers, and I'm using this solid leaf here. Now there is like an outline to this, so you can use the outlines and then colour them in if you want to. I'm just using these literally as they are, and I'm doing first and second generation, so I'm just offsetting them slightly. And again, don't worry if things overlap a little bit, it doesn't matter. It's all about adding textures and layers, and you'll see as time goes on it just gets it starts coming together. You do get to a point where you think, oh dear, I'm not sure this is going to work, and then the more you do, the more you see it sort of coming together. So do stick with it, you know, don't give up halfway through. When I was demonstrating this at my drop-in session, I think everyone was quite surprised how things do sort of suddenly come together. You kind of reach a point of where you're not sure, and then gradually it will sort of improve itself, and you think, yeah, actually I quite like that. Just pop one in here. And we're going to add some more green in a moment anyway to the little flowers, so That's our large one. Again, we might come in with some more depending on how it looks in a little while. And then we've got this little 2 leaves, which I'm going to go with Granny Apple Green again, and I'm just going to add some to some of the little flowers. I'm not doing them all, but just where there's not green from the previous ones, I'm just going to add they're great one sheet wonders because you can use them for so many different things. I mean, there are so many patterns available online. If you just Google one sheet wonder, you'll find patterns for cutting in centimeters and inches, and you'll find there's also cutting patterns for 12 by 12s as well as the A4s that we're doing here. So you can really sort of go to town with it and just sort of choose your designs, choose your stamps, mix your stamps. And as I say, you can also stamp images and then kind of just colour them in if you want to. Obviously that's quite time consuming, whereas this is quite a quick sort of technique, but it's entirely up to you. But as I say, don't worry about overlapping. That's what we want. That's what's going to build up our base. So, okay, so that's all done. So then I've used things to fill in the gaps. Now, you might find that you get to this kind of point and you actually quite like it as it is, and that's absolutely fine. The only problem is when you do cut it up, you do have white bits, and you can guarantee those white bits are never going to be in the right place. So just bear that in mind. But what I like to do is now start adding sort of some different textures and stuff like that in. So I'm going to start off first of all with some more Rococo Rose. As I say, this is mainly our base with the Blackberry Bliss, and this is another sort of flower centre one, and I'm just going to stamp this in some of the gaps. So I usually start off sort of filling in sort of like the bigger white gaps just to start bringing it all together, and then we'll go in perhaps with a different colour. So I've done that one in Rococo. I'm now going to use this one here, and I'm going to bring in Blackberry Bliss again. But this time I'm going to use second generation stamping with this. So we're going to ink it, and then we're going to add it. So it's adding another texture and another colour, although it's tonal, so it will fit really nicely with this. It's sort of kind of lighter, so it just gives you that nice breakdown. So you can see it's starting to all pull together now, but we've got quite a way to go yet. So I've done that in Blackberry Bliss, and I'm also going to add some in Saffron. So again, these are quite nice background stamps because they're just sort of, they're not flowers, but they're sort of kind of you can see that it's got that botanical sort of feel to it, which is really nice. So don't be afraid to over stamp things because we want them all to sort of pull together. So just feel quite free with it. Okay, so that's that one. Just give that a quick wipe. I've also used, as I said to you, this sort of squarey textured one. So again, I'm just going to bring it in, and this time I'm not even going to worry whether I stamp the whole thing, whether it's part of it. So I'm holding sort of the stamp at an angle just to get bits of it, and again it's just filling in little gaps, over stamping wherever I feel I want to stamp it. Okay, so let's have a look at what else we've got. So I talked about this little 5-dot one here. So this is great also for adding, you know, another sort of texture in, another sort of effect. So I'm going to go back in with pumpkin on this. And I might also go in with another colour on this one in a minute. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some of the wire. So this is the all wired up stamp, and this is one of our really big stamps. So, but I'm not going to put it onto a block. I'm going to use it literally as it is. And what I do is I'm just going to curl it up in almost like a cone. You're not going to hurt this in any way, shape or form. And I'm using grey granite. So say I'm just creating like a cone, and I'm literally just rocking it into my ink pad and rocking it into my sheet. So I'm not having a complete image, it's just literally sections of it are just stamping over where I've been already. You can see it's starting to come together. You know, we've still got some way to go with some other bits and bobs to fill in some more gaps. But I think I'm quite happy with the wire. That is just adding texture, so that's literally just adding that lovely little bit of texture into things. Now I've just realised actually I did use this little stamp here as well, so let's grab that one. I can find a block the right size. There we go. And this is a very sort of subtly sort of background. It hasn't, it's not very defined. And if you look at my original one, you can just see it in the background here. So there's, you know, it appears, but it is very subtle. And again, I'm not worrying about sort of what level of inking I put on it. I'm just picking up some colour. And what it does, it just takes away some of that whiteness. So anywhere you've got a little gap, just give it a little bit of texture. Okay, and then if you wanted to, of course, you could go in with an extra bit of colour if you wanted to. Okay, so I could stop at this point again if I wanted to. You can literally stop wherever you want to. So don't feel that you've got to keep going and keep adding. You stop when you are comfortable with it. As I say, I wanted to create a real overall effect on this. So what I did next was I added some stenciling. So again, I might go back and add some more little flowers and stuff, depending on how I look once I'm stenciled. So this is one of our masks. And I started off by using pumpkin pie. So I'm just going to pick up some of the pumpkin pie. And I'm literally just holding it sort of in certain areas. And I don't want too much of this. And I'm not following any pattern. It's literally just a little bit over the top. Okay. Then what I want to do is to use my Blackberry Bliss. So again, I'm just holding the stencil in place and just rubbing it over certain pieces. Now, because I've got some of the pumpkin pie still on my stencil, I get a mixture of the two colours. And then in a moment, I'm going to go back to the pumpkin pie, and also that will pick up some of that beautiful mix of colours. Now, every time you do one of these, it will look different. So it's just a case of playing and sort of seeing how they come out. So I've used my pumpkin pie, my Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to go straight into my pumpkin pie, which is going to give me a mix of the two. So it's going to give another tone, but it will still really mix well. And as I say, I'm just not really looking where I'm putting it. I'm just, anywhere I can find a little gap, I might just add a little bit. And next I'm going to go back to my Blackberry Bliss, and this time I want to make sure that I'm sort of filling in any last minute sort of pieces. And you, as I say, the stronger you press with your brush through, you're going to end up with a darker colour or lighter colour. You can add a little bit, then move it a little bit. Just feel completely free with it. That's the trick. Okay, so I think I'm sort of happy where that is. What I do feel is that I need to probably just fill in a little bit with a lightish colour, and the lightest one I've got is So Saffron. So this one that I used before, I'm going to go back in and just go over any little gaps. And I think I'm also going to add some centres to those Blackberry Bliss flowers. But you can literally see how free it is. You really don't need to sort of think about it. It literally is a case. So I've completely missed that corner. Look at that. There we go. So yes, I want to get rid of these centres of these little flowers here. So what I did on the original was I just used the little 5 dot stamp, and I just kind of popped it in the centre. It's not really adding anything, it's just taking that white starkness away, which is what we want to achieve. There we go. So if I bring in the original, so this is one of the originals next to my new one. As you can see, they're really quite similar. There's probably actually a little bit more white gaps in this one than there is this, so I might actually go back and fill those in a little bit. So they're never going to look identical, but there are, you know, you're going to have some real subtle differences, which is really nice. So that's how quick and easy it is to make your one sheet wonder. You can then cut it about and do whatever you want to do with it. Okay, so I promised to talk you through very quickly these cards, which I will do. I'm just quickly going to wipe down my desk so I don't have any ink anywhere, and I shall bring these cards in so I can just explain to you what I did. So with this one, I had a strip of the card, and I cut half of it out with my heart die. These were the Be Mine stitch dies, and then I cut from another piece this half, so that I had half of my heart with the patterned paper and half without. Alternatively, you could just cut yourself a heart, cut one in half, and then you can make 2 opposites. So you can always make, you know, like a mirror image of something that you've done if you're doing something like that. I cut out the love in Blackberry Bliss, and then that was just covered with a little piece of frost white paint, which I'd mixed with a tiny drop of the Blackberry Bliss ink, so it just sort of, it was tonal. So that was that one. All these little specks you can see in the background here are from the Winker Stella. So literally all I did was I had my brush open. I made sure I gave it a tiny squeeze just so that there's nothing, and then you literally tap it all the way across your front, and then you get these lovely little speckles here. So that's how I've done it on most of the cards, just to pull them all together really. So this one here was just a complete rectangle of the pattern paper, and then I popped it through my die cutting machine and just die cut some circles. I then stamped these individually and cut them out and mounted them onto the front. And then this is raised, so these are sort of offset in the background. Now if I can find the other one. So this one, conversely, was these circles that I cut out from here. I just added to this card front with some extra white circles. I've added some faux stitching to most of the cards, just using one of our stamping markers. And I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but I also used the 4-petal stamp in Blackberry Bliss on the background, so it just adds that extra depth, but I'm guessing that's probably not picking that up very well on the camera. So that was those two. This is the one I've had the most questions about. So what you want to do is to cut yourself a strip of card. So cut it in the coordinating card. Again, I've mounted this onto using 3D dimensionals. So cut yourself a strip of card, and then you cut these into, these are 1 centimetre by 3 centimetre squares. And then I just literally arranged them onto that piece of card, which was then stuck on top. So you can see it's really, really simple. Just a strip of card across the middle. So it is actually really simple, but that's the one that's created the most interest, I think. So then this one, when I found that I'd cut most of my bits and pieces out, I had some little offcuts which really weren't much use for much, really. So I managed to position my balloon punch into sort of those little segments, and you'll find that under here some of these balloons actually aren't complete because they were funny little offcuts off the side of card and stuff like that, so they might have a little bit missing underneath, but provided your front ones are whole, that's fine because it's all hidden, you're not going to see that. This one was very simply using our tailored tag punch. So again, I just punched them out of our cardstock, our stamped cardstock, and just arranged them on my card. Really simple, but really effective, and added some faux stitching. So this one, I had, again, a tiny little strip. So I used that little strip just to attach to the side of this embossed panel here. This is the Subtles embossing folder. Out of the, before I embossed it, I cut out some of these hearts, and then I recut them from the pattern paper just so they're mounted on top of that. This background was the frost white paint which I had left over from the previous card, that love card that I spoke to you about. This one here, I had some of it left on my desk mixed up with the ink, so I simply brushed it or sponged it onto my stamp itself, so it gave this sort of little effect in the background. So it's all sort of draws it all together, really. So this one is, you simply take a square, so it can be any kind of size square that you want it to be, and then you cut some strips of card, leaving some little gaps in between, and then I've just cut it into 4 and just rearranged it so that it sort of follows like a pattern round, really. So again, really, really simple techniques, but really quite effective and quick. But what's so nice about it is that it actually, you can make a class from it, but equally you can create a nice gift set, which is really what I had in mind when I do my drop-ins on a Tuesday evening. I always try and sort of we try either learn a technique or we'll do sort of a kind of a little project. So this was the project we made the sheet, and then we made some of the cards. Some we made on the night, others I just did afterwards, and then have put them on display. Now they're done, they just need a box to go in, which is why I had to do this second sheet here. So I've got this sheet all made up ready. So this week I'm going to be making the box for them all to go in. So I'll do another video another day for that, so that you can see how the box came together and how they all went inside. So I hope you like that, and I hope that sort of inspired you to have a little go at a one sheet wonder. As I say, you can stop at any point, so don't ever feel that you've got to do it as heavy as this or as detailed as this. But I like this effect. I think it looks really nice. So hope you enjoy, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.